And welcome to the first edition of Standard Watching the Standard Meta. Today we're going to be covering up a little bit of the decks, and of course going over, like the Pioneer version over my other channel, covering decks. So today we got 5 decks to talk about that I have to talk about for Standard, and we're going to get into all that. So starting off with the actual trends of the current format, how it's looking very weird, but let's see how this pans out. If you like this kind of content, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, hit that bell notification to for future videos. We're on our way to 1,000 subs. Let's get there together. Let's get into this deck list and see the deck. Not see the deck. And talk about the decks. So right out of the gate, we notice that we have Pixie, Domain, Red Deck Wins, Gruul Aggro, Control, just kind of sucking up within the same amount of wheelhouse of actual meta percentages. And then Dimir Bounce right here takes an additional 6%. So, like, you kind of really just add the Dimir Bounce and the Esper Pixie together to get your total for Bounce, basically, because it's Esper Bounce versus Dimir Bounce. There's not that much difference, to be honest. And it makes sense that the Domain Zur Overlords seeing a lot of play. It did really well into Pixie, has a lot of good ETB effects, and has up to Beanstalk, which is really strong. We have 2 different aggro variants here. That seems a little weird, but I'm assuming, Gruul Delirium's down here. So the second Gruul deck must be something slightly different. But Red Deck Wins. I guess this might be Boros or Red, and this is the Talent deck. So, it seems like a pretty good reasonable amount of percentages. About 20%, which is really good in Domain. And then you have Control sitting here, kind of just, watching the entire meta. It's kind of weird that they labeled the 8% deck as a tier 2. I would thought it would have been in tier 1, and this would start at tier 2, but, what are you going to do? Control has came out of nowhere. Gained 5 percentage points. Red Deck Win has gained 5% or 6%, taking percentage points away from Gruul Aggro. And of course, this is on the same trajectory, around the exact same number, give or take, small minus and plus. This gained 2%, along with Dimir Bounce gained about 2%. So these two take it up shares. Definitely the deck, the old boogeyman of the format, has been kind of shoved out. And Azorius Omniscience kind of taking over some slots. I based this deck for a video that's going to be airing in a couple weeks or so. Very interesting deck in general, but I don't know how good it is for long term when you just need Graveyard to kind of disrupt it. And they do have some bounce and stuff like that, but and Oculus also another top Graveyard deck. Gruul Leyline, actually, this is kind of taking some percentages points here. So if you kind of basically jumble those together, I get this one's more of a pump spell deck. This one's more of a, I think a talent. And Convoke, and these all the other decks are staying around about 1.5% to mid to upper point something percent, 0.7 and up. So overall Standard looks like it's a little bit diverse. You have a little bit of aggro, kind of a lot of different aggro variants in the meta. You have Red Deck Wins, Gruul Prowess. Yes, I said you have Gruul Leyline, Convoke, Delirium, Burn. It's like those are all aggro decks. So there's a lot of that option. And when it comes to ramp, you only kind of have one. Yeah, only kind of have one. Then you have a little bit of mid-range piles with Togans if you're interested in mid-range. You can count Dimir the bounce decks as mid-range because they kind of like a mid-rangey tempo deck. And then you have Gruul Golgari mid-range, which is probably the best mid-range, true mid-range. But overall, the format looks like it has some interesting stuff going on. But when it comes to budget, if you're interested in getting into the format, definitely looks like Jeskai Convoke is one of the cheapest decks in the format. When it comes to competitiveness, you could go for Red Deck Wins. Or, ironically, I would have thought Simic Terror would be one of the cheapest decks. I mean, because you have a very cheap Crab, I think, and then you have the Terror. So, honestly, it doesn't seem like it should be all that much, but not the Beanstalk is a little pricey. So the cheapest decks are right in here. So what do you guys think about the current Standard meta? You think it's healthy? I think it's pretty reasonable. It looks like it's not really like Pioneer where it's a triangle. This looks more like it's kind of like 4 or 5 decks staring at each other and seeing who moves. So like I said, I got 5 decks to talk about. Let's get into those. So right out of the gate, there's this Selesnya Artifact aggro deck that got a 5-0, I believe. So it's built around the Wormlet plus Warden in the Inner Sky. Has Bunny Corn for a little bit more aggressive starts. a bunch of things that make multiple bodies or multiple permanents, like Tough Cookie, Inspector, Sentinel. These all really help with the Bunnycorn. I wonder if Bunnycorn would be really good with something like Monstrous Rage. Because the +1 from Monstrous Rage and Trample does allow it to get over. I wonder if you could do something like that with the deck as well. It's like the Tough Cookie, Inspector, and Sentinel. These all help by making multiple things. Reliquary helps you, I guess, technically sack your clues or your maps to remove something. Seraph plus Gearhulk are your kind of mid to late game. Then we have a Haywarmite and Boots as a tutor target for the Gearhulk. Sideboard, we have some Destroy Evils, pretty good against like Shieldred and enchantment removal. Split Up is our choice of a sweeper because we are an aggro deck. So we probably will be untapping against another aggro deck. They probably are going to be aggressively attacking us. And against aggro, we also have Shelter by Ghost, which gains its life. We have a Soul Guide Lantern and Rest in Peace for Graveyard Hate. So when we face the Omniscient deck, we have that. Against Control, we bring in even Interrupter as a way to disrupt the counter spells and the target removal spells. We have some Raise the Pass in case our deck gets hit by a sweeper or a bunch of removal. We can get everything back. That is Celestia Artifact Aggro for Standard. We got 4 more decks to talk about, and one of the names of the deck is wrong, but let's get into them. So next is Jeskai Monument, built around Monument to Endurance. And we could, well, that's actually kind of cool. Like, we could bring it back with Recommission. It's kind of like what I did in a Pioneer a long time ago. There was a tomb, and I just kept bringing it back to get a little bat. So that it's not as cool as that, because I mean, Monument to Endurance is much basically the tomb card on steroids, but still the same premise. If you mill this over, you could literally just recommission it, and it's kind of sweet. For removal, we have Torch the Tower plus Burst Lightning. For aggressiveness, we have a Mutt plus Guardian and Fear. So we have multiple ways of just pitching our hand. We have Oculus. So we don't really have much blue mana except for this Verge, it looks like. And the Garden. I think that also taps for a color mana, potentially. So we can cast it, I guess. But for the most part, we're going to be pitching the Oculus, recommissioning, or handing it back. And that seems to be the norm here. Weirdly enough, not playing the Shark. I'm not sure if the Shark would be pretty good, though. Like, you could play the Shark on 1, Mutt, discard a card, make it a 2/2 attack. I'm not sure how good that would be. But that is the deck as a whole. Like, we have a pretty good solid base here. 3 Ghosts, Vacuums for our Graveyard Hate. Nothing else, okay. Barrage is pretty good against the Mirror to get rid of the Oculus. Also can help against for some reason I faced the new Horse mount, so that kills that in 2. Destroy Evil gets rid of Shieldred plus enchantments. Exorcist gets rid of enchantments and plus same things as Destroy Evil, actually, except it's exiles instead. Sheltered by Ghost is for aggro. Pyroclasm is for aggro. Artifact and enchantment removal, and if you need more of it, that we can get by helping hand, we could bring in Lauren and just probably take out like Guardian or something or whatever and just bring those in. Overall, we don't really have to be a graveyard deck, right? So a Graveyard Hate doesn't seem as effective against us because we can just hard cast our stuff, cower cast our FOMO, our Guardian, and our Smut, and our Dragon Engine, and just try to get there. But then again, those cards aren't really all that good on their own. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think about this deck. Can it stack up into the format? We'll find out. We have 3 decks to talk about. Let's get into them. Next is of course, the Collector's Cage deck that Doomwake at one point brought to whatever, I think it was an RC or whatever. Or it might have been a Spotlight series. I can't remember. I haven't really watched Doomwake in a while, so I don't know. Probably been over a month. We have a Gearhulk as a way to, tutor for our Elf, Paw Patch, also Gnome, Pixie, some Reliquaries, and sideboard we have a Soul Guide Lantern, a Mite. So those are pretty nice little tutor targets. We have Fungus, I guess, as another tutor target for artifact and enchantment removal, or we could draw. We have Sanguine plus Scavenger, Salvager. We have 3 Overlords to get off of our cage, or the Gearhulk, or Virtue of Loyalty. Besides that, we have a little bit of a Wild Guide, okay. Like, man, and that's pretty much the main board, plus we have Gust to basically blink our Overlord, in case we want to get more abilities off of it, or the Gearhulk. Against black and red decks, we have Decree, Beza for aggro, Interrupter for control and combo, stuff like that. Might as another tutor target we can bring in for the Gear Hulk. Fade from History for artifact and enchantment removal. We have a Nisa, a couple copies for grinding matchups. Rest in Peace, Soul Lantern for Graveyard Heat. And we have a decent 5-drop, 4/4 Baneslayer type creature. You can bring in and get certain matchups as well. Helps it with a little bit of life link. It's also pretty grindy in case we want to bring it in for that purposes. But that is Cage. So we got 2 more decks. Let's get into them. So this is the deck that says it's called Esper Toxic. But it's really Golgari Midrange. It's Obliterator, which is why I really like it. Once you got Baloth in the main, I am all in. Pulse, love it. Everything in the deck taps for black. So we can cast the Obliterator. Bushwhack helps us get our lands in the early game and to also fight later. Dread Knight has become one of my favorite cards in Magic. So kind of excited to see that. Sentinel's pretty sweet too. Cut down, duress, a bunch of cheap removal. Anoint with Affliction as a way to exile a cheap creature like the mouse. So they don't get the dice trigger. And Baloth's here for, of course, Pixie. So kind of sweet there. Breacher, also awesome. And 1 Bronco. Sideboard, a couple of Terra Sunders for artifact enchantment exile based removal. Choking plus Gix's Command probably for aggro, along with our Harvester in the main. Against combo, we have in control, we have Brain plus Duress. We also have Annex plus Archfiend of the Dross, in case we want to switch into a demon package. Another Baloth for Pixie Bounce. Throwback for a little bit of artifact and enchantment removal. And Gix's Command, kind of a nice little catch-all. Can kill small things, also pump some things. Do a bunch of other kind of stuff like that. So overall, pretty sweet deck. I kind of like it. Then again, I'm a huge fan of Obliterator. So where do you think this deck stacks up in Standard? I might want to know all that in the comment section. One more deck to talk about. Let's dive into that one. So last but not least, we have Orzhov Ketra. Or Ketramos. We have 4 of those. 1 Kaya. Yeah, 1 Kaya. 4 Legions to Ashes as an exile-based removal to trigger your Ketramos. Lockdown to help Ketramos. Parting Gust as a way to blink something, which helps Ketramos. We have a Lush, I guess. I'm not sure why you want the green, but I guess it's for surveilling. Anointed with Affliction. Nice way to exile small creatures. Soul Search, a way to exile a card as well. Tomb as a nice little draw effect. Deadly Cover-Up, exiling a bunch of stuff. Then we have a pseudo way of just exiling 4 cards with the same name or opponent's deck. The End is a nice way to trigger it as well. And then we have Cease to Exist as a way to exile 2 cards from a graveyard. Trigger this, draw an extra card, draw 2 basically, and you gain 1 life because you gain 2 and you lose 1. So pretty sweet overall. Nice little interactions. Against aggro, we have Authority of the Consuls for a little bit of life gain, making their stuff ETB tapped. Against mid-range piles, we have a way to get rid of artifacts and creatures. I think that's right. Against graveyard decks like Omniscience, we have Vacuum. Also against aggro, we have Silax. Forgot to mention that. Against combo, we have additional copies to exile 4 cards from our opponent's library. Against grinding matchups, we have Annex. We have Binding Negotiation. Nice little card we could bring in as well. I can't remember what this card does though. Exorcist is a nice way to hate on mid-range threats plus artifacts and enchantments, so we can get rid of their annexes. Overall, like this seems like a nice addition, nice sweet deck as a whole. Keep in mind we don't really play that many at all demons, so we don't really have a great way of gaining life from the annex. So keep that in mind when you pick up this deck. Besides just, I guess, getting the demon on the annex itself. Besides that, there's no real ways to make demons in the deck. Let me know in the comment section which one of these decks is your favorite. Don't forget to check out my other channel if you want to check out the Pioneer. I've been covering that, doing the watch series over there for quite some time. So there's a decent backlog if you want to see multiple episodes of that. And so let me know in the comment section. I'll talk to you guys next time.